Hello, everybody on YouTube. This is Ben Hansen with MinnMax. We're a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. I want to give you a heads up that if you prefer to listen to this conversation instead of watching it, you can support MinnMax on Patreon at the $5 tier. You unlock this conversation, all of our deepest dives, which is our big community game club. Right now, we're doing Final Fantasy VII Remake and having a great time, and a bunch of other bonus content. So without further ado, here's Kyle Bosman. Kyle Bosman, welcome to MinnMax, sir.
Thank you.
Just to be clear,
this is my first MinnMax video at all.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for swinging by. Just to be clear, I say welcome to MinnMax. You're not joining MinnMax in any capacity.
Okay. Is this how you let me know? Is this how?
I'm sorry. We've been building up for months, and now I just wanted to get you on air to reject the hell out of you, man.
Got it. Okay.
No, this is your last week with Easy Allies.
This is my last day as an Easy Ally.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Friday. This is my last day.
The layup. How you feeling?
So I announced it a while ago. I talked to the team even in January of this year, and so I feel very prepared. I had a long time to prep for this emotionally.
Yeah.
And so I actually feel okay.
Do you almost feel like you're ready to rip the Band-Aid off come like early March, February? It's like, let's just go. We got to transition to this new phase of my life here.
Well, it's more just like a very slow tearing off of duct tape, right? Just removing everything. So yeah. I feel like it is almost, you're at that last part of the duct tape, right? That's right. Today. It's just oh, okay. Whew, I'm there. And then, tomorrow will be wild as just a freshly unemployed person.
Oh yeah. Okay. And I mean, the timing in the world is just bizarre. I'm sure everything's been weighing on you very heavily.
Yeah.
Do you know where you're going next?
I don't.
I think a lot of people don't believe you. I just may be projecting because I don't know if I believe you. You must have something in the back of your mind of some shining something on top of a mountain.
So there's a couple of things. Like one is I applied to school. I applied to go to a graduate program. I got on a wait list pre-lockdown, pre-COVID-19, and post-COVID-19, I expect not to hear from them ever again.
Really?
Because I feel like, so getting on a wait list, I don't know how frequent that is. To me, that's kind of like, no, you did good, but no. If you apply to a college, I didn't expect to hear back from them anyway. You're crossing your fingers for that. But so there was a desire, I will say, to go back to school, to get further education. There was that. And maybe I'll apply to more schools.
Yeah, I think
there was that.
I'm trying to remember if it was in one of your streams or maybe it was in the goodbye post, but you made that heartbreaking analogy of just saying, I love French fries, but I've been eating too many French fries over the last couple of years. And you also said something along the lines of how you're sick of reacting to things and you want to start acting more. And that has to be such a tough message for the Easy Allies community when they're like, hey, we come to you guys for French fries. And now when somebody in that group says, I don't like them anymore, it's like, it's brutal.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I still love them. That's kind of what I want to make clear is that I love streaming. You know what I mean? I still love video games. And that's why I said, I don't think people understand how much I truly love French fries. So when I say that my job has just been eating French fries every day, I mean, I love French fries. I love my job. Yeah. It's very hard to describe loving your job, but also feeling unfulfilled. It's a very weird way to get it about that. And also you wonder how you don't want to look like you're passing judgment on your coworkers who have the exact same job that you have too. It's weird. It's hard to communicate really the feelings.
Yeah. But the broad strokes are you want to improve yourself a little bit more. Is that the basic idea? And whatever job comes out of that, it's great.
Yeah. Do I want to improve myself? I don't know, man. I just I want to, I guess I want to be very challenged. I want to be pushed as hard as my little body can go, I guess. As hard as my little mind can go, I want to be pushed.
Yeah. And you feel, it's such a weird thing. And look, I applaud you for making the decision you made. I think it's a bold decision. At the same time, just starting up MinnMax and the Patreon here, it kind of freaks me out to my core of this idea of I love this right now. Am I going to be on a track where after a couple years of complete freedom and just nothing but love and support from the community, I won't feel satisfied? And it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah. I see it. Well, yeah. I would hope not. But I don't know, Ben. I see you as MinnMax.
Well, I hope not. I hope that's not the idea. You know, we're trying to branch it out, and you know, we want to create more shows in the future and have other shows pop up. So hopefully there'll be less of me in the future compared to more of me shoving my face into every Instagram post. Like, now watch me do this. Now watch me do this. Like, I'm sick of that. So I'm sure the community will be just around the corner.
Got it. Sure. So you that's kind of the thing is when Easy Allies started, I wanted to make it very clear visually and factually that, you know, I'm just a part of this. I'm 1/9 of this thing.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm leading this. It's not, you know, like this is, I'm carrying this thing.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Even the phrasing for you hosting the podcast, I don't think it was from the start, but you started calling yourself the moderator, which I thought was such an interesting distinction. Can you take us into the very specific wording there of what you're feeling and why you made that shift?
You're right, because I was being a podcast host.
Yeah,
you're right. And like I should have just called myself a host. Maybe it is that, right? It is me trying not to be the star of the Easy Allies podcast, but the facilitator of it.
Yeah, I think you did a good job. Hey man,
Thanks.
you did a really good job with that podcast. That was really good. I know, like I was a guest on the podcast a couple years ago. So it was like 2018.
Sure, that was, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. It was a very weird day because that was the day where I was on like a Jurassic World Evolution preview thing. And I went from filming an interview with Jeff Goldblum to being a guest on Easy Allies, one of my favorite podcasts. And it was like, what a day in retrospect. What the hell? And, you know, one of those has a lasting legacy, right? Nobody's still bringing up that Jeff Goldblum interview, but people still send me messages about like, oh yeah, MinnMax. Oh, I think I heard about you. I think you're on Easy Allies. I remember enjoying you. So I checked out the Patreon over here and stuff. So it's nice that your community is so sweet and dedicated that they would remember something like that.
You also did a good job. You are still
thanks.
the only podcast guest I had the entirety of Easy Allies podcast.
Why do you think that is? Not for me in particular, but why do you think you didn't reach out more?
I'm a very shy person, very antisocial, but also like there's some part of like antisocialness, right? Where it's shyness, you know, it's like fear of interaction. And then there's also like a disinterest in interaction. And so like, there's also just like my worst nightmare is just sending somebody an email saying you want to come on the podcast.
Yeah. Do you, if you pulled off like a big guest or a big get, do you feel a sense of satisfaction from that? Once it's all done, do you feel like, oh, great, I was so focused on that, I didn't have to dwell in my normal brain ruts for an hour or two?
Yeah, that's so weird. Like, to me, I never imagined the Easy Allies podcast as like a glitzy show. You know what I mean? I don't think I'd want to get a big get. People always ask like, hey, why don't you play your Keeley card? Why don't you get Keeley on the podcast?
Oh, interesting, yeah.
It's like, I'm going to save that. I'm saving that Keeley card. I don't think the Easy Allies podcast was the thing for that. The thing for Keeley is the smallest little cameo appearance in some stupid, very, very stupid video. You know, you're going to feel it. You're going to know when you need to make your Keeley call, and it's going to be the silliest possible thing.
Okay, the Keeley stuff overall.
Yeah.
What was your involvement with those shows, with the Game Awards overall? Like, you would talk a little bit about it every once in a while, but I was always confused about exactly what you were doing. And my favorite thing is when you would talk about Keeley, there's one segment in particular on the podcast where you talked about Keeley and the conclusion was, yeah, no one really knows who he is or what he is, if he's mortal. And I think we all just imagine you sitting in a writer's room or something with Keeley, hanging out, eating Cheetos together. But what was your actual involvement with those shows?
It is a lot of writing, actually, which is very fun. My official job title is consultant on the Game Awards, but I still get to do a lot of writing. I get to do a lot of spitballing. This year, I wrote the pre-show entirely, which was kind of interesting because previously I basically like pitched jokes and intros for the entire show. But to have this thing where like I am writing this and I have to have good and bad pitches for each segment of the intro, the pre-show, that was really cool. That was pretty fun. The pre-show itself obviously is, by its nature, kind of dry. You don't put many jokes into it because it's one host, and so there's not that like presenter banter.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's times where, right, it's you, the other writer, and 3 producers, Keeley included, in a dressing room, and you're reading the script that you wrote, and like a joke bombs, and you just eat it. It's the worst. But Keeley remains supportive despite me writing dumb, horrible jokes.
he remains supportive, but is he looking up from his phone while he supports you, or is it just kind of like, yeah, great, yeah?
Oh, no. It takes a lot to pull him up from his phone.
Okay.
I'm not at that level ever.
I remember one time running into an E3, and it was like right when we launched or relaunched like Game Informer Digital, and he had two phones out, and he's like, Game Informer, we're entering the next generation. Digital, cool. It's like, he's congratulating us. Just a little bit of eye contact. It's all
nothing to take personally, right? Yeah, if you get a glance, you're doing great.
But he's a busy, successful guy, so who am I to judge? So you're leaving all that behind as well?
If I leave LA, a lot of it's going to be left behind. But no, I talked to Keely. We obviously still want to work together. I still want to help out as much as I can.
Yeah.
Because I love that stuff. I love Game Awards. I love Gamescom that we did last year. We did basically a little E3-esque pre-show for Gamescom, and that was really fun. We did the E3 stuff too. The live show and the Coliseum, the panel show. And so, yeah, it's just kind of fun. It's the biggest budget productions I get to work on, right? It's the biggest teams. It's people wearing headsets and being very serious, and directors and assistant directors, right? And so it's like real legit TV crews and things. And so it's interesting just for a few times a year to work on those projects, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think you learned from that overall? Is there anything you took back to Easy Allies during your era there? Or was it just a lot of, hey, if we had millions of dollars, we could really have some sweet headsets here?
It's kind of that. You learn a certain professionalism. You learn how far back you are. In a way, you learn like, oh, okay, our stuff is what it is. You learn where things can go, right? You learn the people who are passionate about audio, the people who have just been doing this their entire lives and all they care about is audio. You get to work with them and talk to them and see them do their thing, and it's interesting. It's cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about like, oh, it's a small scale thing at Easy Allies, this is something I'm dealing with at MinnMax too. But did you struggle with that feeling of we need to expand, we can do so much more, and pushing for it, but then just every once in a while realizing that you're laying on a really soft bed of the community, and it's like, oh, like we're financially supported, we can do creative stuff here. I don't know why I'm extending the stick with the carrot on it in front of me. You know what I mean?
So I got a question.
Yeah.
How many people are in MinnMax? How many official MinnMaxers are there?
Like on our side, the co-hosts, the cohorts?
Yeah.
So it's myself as the only full-time person, and then like on the co-host tier, so that's a part-time thing, so that's 3. And then contractors below that.
Okay. But so like Easy Allies with 9 people from the start, owning it equal ways. And we have very different feelings about the answer to your question, because I think there are people who are like, hey, dude, we don't have to go crazy, right? People love what we do. We should just keep doing this. And then I think it's because, you know what I mean? I'm in a kind of different scenario where I don't have a wife and I'm just a very carefree person. I'm just like, hey, we should spend all of our money every month, and so like there's a definite balance there. I'm like, we should get more things. We should spend this. We should dump this. We should spend $10,000 on our logo, and so everybody's like, no, that makes no sense. And I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah, it's funny. I'm careless about money in a certain way, in that I work to not care about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's in a business, that's irresponsible, right? But yeah, to answer your question, no, I wanted to spend money constantly. I wanted to like improve things constantly and spend as much as we could.
Spend the money, but what about just for the reach overall? I mean, did you feel like you could really take comfort in the fact of how supported and loved you are from a community?
Oh, our audience?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Our audience was surprising to me day one, right? And I thought it would recede quickly. So Easy Allies, right? We had this big day where it's just like, yeah, these are all the game trailers, guys. They're doing this thing. And I was well aware that it's a lot of sympathy money, right? We were trashed by a corporation. And so like it's a lot of just like, that's not right. They should be appreciated. But that we were able to keep people caring about us, and as many people as we were, that was pretty surprising still. Yeah, that's wild. That was wild.
And what do you think that is? Is it just those people stick around for a long time? I'm not asking for any particular reason. Or do you feel like you need to like hustle to convert people and new people to come in, and that sympathy money, as you put it, kind of wears down over time?
It does wear down over time, especially if your level of, production quality doesn't go up, and you're doing fewer of the shows that people love, and not coming up with new things. I think new things are important, just to keep your company rejuvenated and looking fresh and interesting to your audience. But no, I think that a lot of it a lot of it is day one, right? I'd actually be very, very curious to know the percentage of Easy Allies patrons currently who were day one patrons, but we've definitely picked them up over time. You definitely pick them up. You do E3 stuff. The exclusive shows, spoiler mode, like always picks up patrons.
People are just hungry for that spoiler content. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have an exclusive series called Spoiler Mode, where you're just allowed to talk about a game in its entirety. You don't have to be scared about what you're saying. And that's often an exclusive show. We just did one that was public for Final Fantasy VII Remake. But anyway, for some reason, every time one of those goes up, it's like we get some patrons that come in. And so that's a weird thing, right? Just this one direct one-to-one, whereas most of the time it's just like, hey, I've been listening to the podcast for 8 months. I thought I'd throw you some bucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really that. It's really... It's like you can't... We've never done like a patron drive, right? It's just been this kind of like consistent vacuuming up, just sucking some in. People leave, as people will, but just consistent enough to, stay at a certain level.
Yeah, it is a bizarre feeling where like our Patreon's been pretty steady, and it's unbelievable, and thanks to everybody for their support. But it's this weird thing where if you zoom in enough and look at who's leaving and who's entering every day, it's like looking at... I don't know. There's probably some smart quantum mechanics analogy to make here. But it's just like, oh, it's a steady hillside. And it's like, no, you zoom into that hillside and it's dugga, 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 and it is like a miracle that it's evening out at the exact same rate, or maybe just slightly increasing. And if you zoom in too much to that, and if I check that number multiple times a day, it will genuinely affect my mood. Like, I'll be like, why am I in such a crappy mood while eating dinner with my girlfriend tonight? Oh, that's right. Like, the number went down a couple ticks. And like, do you have that? Were you able to kind of check out at a certain point and just zoom out and look at the big picture?
Yeah, I check out a lot, actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I used to when we were new, when the Patreon was new, I used to read all the messages that people would send in, and then it basically became the job of other people. And so I like stopped reading the messages, right? If they had one that was particular to me, it would be forwarded to me. But generally, you become kind of unaware of the complaints of patrons in particular, right? Like I'm reading every complaint of the podcast, every show I do, every stream I do, I'm reading those complaints.
Yeah.
But of the actual like business, I checked out early. I checked out very, very early of, I barely look at how much I make in a month as compared to the month prior, because that stuff does... Again, money I'm intentionally careless about because it stresses me out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that once you start thinking about that, it drives other decisions. And so, yeah, I barely look at that. I barely look at like live viewership and things. Stuff I try to ignore, because you're like, right, when you start thinking about those numbers, it changes your dinner, dude. It's like, It does change everything.
Don't do anything in life that changes your dinner, I think, is a good takeaway overall. Yeah. No, it's funny you talk about spoiler mode. Like, we do something at MinnMax here called the Deepest Dive, which is like a community game club where we take big games and break them up into chunks and talk about it with the community. And we're doing one now for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And we've already talked for like 6 hours just about the first 9 chapters of the game, but it's so much fun and I really love it. But there is a surprising amount of people that join the Patreon just for that, because I always have like a little entrance survey about like, hey, how'd you find us? What did you join us for? And it's like, oh, people are just hungry for that in-depth discussion. You realize like, oh yeah, I guess just big outlets can't afford, strangely enough, to dedicate this much time to one thing. But like, yeah, people out there love Final Fantasy VII and they're looking for and hopefully entertaining conversation that's as specific as possible. And it's crazy to find that audience. And it's like, oh yeah, we've been asking for this for a long time. Thank you for delivering it,
Yeah, and I think what's fun about it is I think that is the kind of conversation we all wish we could be a part of as well.
Yeah.
I think there's just something innately valuable to those conversations where you can't talk about this stuff with somebody at work because it's like, no, spoilers, you know what I mean? Like the Deepest Dive, it's just like, hey, let's just talk about everything. Nothing's off the table. I love that. I think that the games deserve it, right?
Exactly.
A game deserves to be talked about for this long.
That's it. I mean, it would kill me. We did one on Chrono Trigger not too long ago because it would just kill me, Well, at Game Informer, obviously, everybody loves Chrono Trigger there. And then every time we would do like a top RPGs of all time or 300 best games of all time we did during my run there for the magazine. And it'd be like, Chrono Trigger, awesome game. Soundtrack killer. Frog was pretty cool. All right, that's like in the top 5 probably of all time. I just think of like, it's just everybody kind of has their 3 bullet points for every great game. And it drives me nuts. It's like, there are so many more things to talk about in there. And I just wish that we could collect it all. So it's so satisfying to have an outlet for that. Yeah, it's a weird thing. But what's going to be like the greatest relief for you, do you think? Is there a certain amount of like the hustle that you're going to be glad to step back from here?
I've had a pretty good 2020 because I've been working for the last 2 years on Box Peak. Ben, you're wearing a Box Peak shirt. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Anything I can do to help.
I was looking for my MinnMax shirt. It's not clean. I was like, oh, where's my MinnMax shirt? It's like, it's not clean. Okay.
You ran out of toilet paper. I understand.
I don't have a new logo shirt though, so maybe I should get a second one.
They look nice.
Am I allowed to ask how much your new logo was?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, you're allowed to ask. I won't say, but it definitely was a situation where I'm like, well, I have friends that are graphic designers, and a lot of them complain about everybody lowballing them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I volunteered a number with the graphic designer, and he's like, yeah, I agree to that. And then when I would tell other people that number, they all spat out their drink. And I don't know if they're just less familiar with graphic design overall or exactly how that works, but it was south of 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to hear. That's a good explanation. And it was like a friend too.
I mean, he's a friend now, but he was a stranger. He was kind of a friend of a friend. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you into that kind of thing? Why do you ask that? I'm curious.
Oh, because I always wanted to like have just like a professional agency do the Easy Allies logo.
Right. Okay.
Just like focus test it, have a group of children like rate the logo. Like I always wanted at that level because right now you can open Photoshop and make the Easy Allies logo. It's just a font.
But it works, And
it does, and that's the thing. That's why everybody always like, Kyle, shut up. Our logo works, man. People like it. It's like, okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some charm in Easy Allies for, this is weird, but the graphic design overall, where it's like every YouTube thumbnail, it's like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. It feels rustic, I guess you could put it. A little scrapped together, and that's kind of the charm, right?
Yeah. Okay, but to answer your question, though,
yeah.
like, that was daily stress working on this project that took 2 years. That is not even a huge deal.
Right.
In terms of the YouTube channel, in terms of viewership, is not a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so that was like daily stress. And so coming into this year without that, I don't know what I don't know what I'm going to be like relieved of. I don't know like what my least favorite part of my job was. It's all pretty good, man. It's all pretty. I mean, obviously you're going to like, I like the idea of these, like the commenters who would write negative comments or just like, man, I can't, like, I'm so sick of this guy. I'm sick of his humor. It's like, I take delight in leaving that person without their little comment to write.
Do you really?
Because I know they're going to miss me. I know they're going to like wish that I was still there. I know it. They have no choice but to feel that way.
I think it's just, there's going to be a certain, once I was really, I took solace in an interview with Larry David from a while ago where somebody asked him like if it feels better to be rich mentally. And he's like, no, it just turns out you learn that there is a percentage of your brain that's always going to be worrying. It could be worrying about money. As soon as that is taken care of, then it just will choose something else. I think those commenters are the same way, right? Where it's like they're just ready to complain about something. It's like, him, I'll let my lightning strike that guy. He's the tallest rod around here. And that's how I like to describe you, as the tallest rod in the room.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anytime, man.
You're right, but they might just go to someone else. They might go to Jonesy. Their ire might turn to a different direction.
Do you think you're going to follow a lot of the content? Are you going to listen to the podcast for years in the future?
I'm going to listen to the first 3 episodes and feel how it goes.
How do you expect it'll go?
Episode 1, I expect Brandon Jones, the new host of the podcast, to be nervous. I expect him to have this nervous energy. By episode 3, I expect him to be over that and in some sort of groove.
Yeah.
And this will be the true judgment. This will be like, okay, I'm hooked on this podcast. Or, you know what? Not for me.
Right. Interesting. I think he's going to do a great job. I don't want this conversation to come across as, wow, the end of an era for Easy Allies. It is the end of an era. But I mean, the exciting thing that, I learned leaving Game Informer not too long ago is like, yeah, the show goes on. You're such a smaller part of this machine than you think. Andy McNamara is hosting the Game Informer show now. It's like, that's awesome. To have the guy that was there since 1991 hosting the podcast, like, of course that makes sense. And he's doing a good job at it, But
I was actually surprised he was down for it.
I was too.
Because he's still editor-in-chief, right?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have to do that.
I know. It's pretty wild. And the fun thing is it came from, because before I launched MinnMax, I talked to a community member, Chris Cochran, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But anyways, I talked to him, and I just said, like, out of the blue, like, hey, who do you think should host the podcast? And he's like, oh, of course it should be Andy. I was like, I hadn't even thought of that. Of course. And I feel like it is maybe because of Chris, the community member, that ended up happening, which is just very fun to see overall. But it's a weird thing where I thought I was going to be too emotionally invested to listen to the Game Informer show after I left. And it's like, it's fun. It's just like a nice way to reconnect. Like, there's a weird thing that happened. Oh, go ahead.
No, I honestly, like, truthfully, right? We said this 3-episode thing, but yeah, these people are my friends. And the way you say reconnect is so true in that, like, it's going to be the way to, like, listen to them still.
Yeah. Except you'll have, like, this behind the scenes kind of internal monologue about, like, oh, I don't know about that. Or like, somebody should call somebody on that bullshit there. Like, you'll be just like craving for something because you have some inside knowledge of exactly the dynamics going on here. So it'll kind of drive you nuts, but it's fun nonetheless. But I loved when Jones was guest hosting for a while. And like, I feel like the most insight I've ever had into you as a host was Jones would read your notes that you would send him with the rundown of the show, including no riffing during certain segments, which really made me laugh. You're just listening to that being driven insane about, like, they're stepping on the joke, they're stepping on the parody of it.
Because then he riffed. He riffed.
Yes.
The note said don't riff, and then he riffed. Yes. And no, I was furious. I was livid.
I think there's going to be a lot of those sensations coming up of like, oh, we just gotta let it go.
Yeah.
It's a whole new beast.
Because that's the thing is, I think honestly, it takes a while, right? It takes a while to become your own podcast host and make it your own thing. And that's not an immediate thing. You can't really hit your stride immediately. So heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Here's an impossible question for you. What do you think you were good at Easy Allies? What were you best at?
What do I think I was good at? There was a time where I was really good at coming up with stream ideas, like very silly group stream ideas, events. Like, we do the thing called the Hall of Greats, where once every quarter, basically, we all make a case for one of the greatest games of all time. And at the end of the night, we vote only 2 of those games in. So we have Easy Allies doing speeches to make a case for a game. Yeah. And then we have like a cross-examination where we attack that game with questions for 5 minutes and a vote that's, it's like Survivor-esque. It's very an intense vote. So this kind of like Twitch programming, right? Like this Twitch, like making little shows. Eventually I kind of coasted off of like making new things like that. But I think that for a while I was really good at that. Like coming up with like this idea of like betting specials, like making E3 this own separate event by making bets on what would happen during E3.
Yeah.
So you have something coming into it, you have something throughout E3 that you're looking forward to, and then something at the end to see, who has to do an embarrassing, stupid thing at the end. It is fun, right? It adds stakes and investment to this entire thing. So yeah, I think like ideas. I think there's some good ideas.
Oh, a bit of an ideas guy. That was what you're going to college for?
Yeah. Kind of.
Oh boy. Yeah, like, is that connected to just like maybe branding overall or like packaging? Like, just listening to the podcast primarily, I'm always amazed thinking about like, God, you have such a good sense of what's fun for listeners. You just on the small scale of even, when the community member wrote in just on last week's podcast talking about like the most used phrases in all the reviews, compelling to listen to. I just loved it. And by any measure, that segment went on too long, but you're like, this is great. We got to keep rolling. Like, it's such a weird intrinsic thing, but I'm so happy that you were able to acknowledge that. Like, yeah, it's a long segment, but I feel the audience enjoying this, probably because you're enjoying it, right? I feel like you have a good sense of what's fun for the audience, and that comes through like in branding as well, of just like the dumb, simple stuff of like, oh, Dark Prince of Nerd Media. Throw it out there. That's a handhold for the community trying to climb this rock wall of falling in love with Easy Allies as a community, right?
So what's super weird is in applying for grad school, you have to write essays talking about how good you are. That's very hard for me, honestly. But one of the things is like was, what do I think I'm good at? What do I think I'm special at? What do I bring? And I talked about this thing in particular, Ben, in that I do feel as though I do have at least some ability to feel an audience, to be an entertainer. And I think part of that is a lot of live audience experience. Like in college, I did a lot of stand-up, and I would get easy laughs for easy bad jokes in college. So I can't say most of that was that valuable, but you learn how to have a presence, I guess. And then in LA, did a lot of UCB stuff. So that's a lot of sketch stuff and a lot of improv, a ton of improv, and a lot of very, very bad improv. Me personally, I was just very, very bad at it. But also, I think, it's that kind of thing where I'm like, oh, I'm dirt. And it's like, it's still pretty funny. But like, there was this sketch show called Not Too Shabby every Friday nights. And this is a chance at the UCB Theater, which is a comedy theater in LA and also in New York, where it'd be this chance for anybody to have a shot to be in this sketch show, where you submit at the beginning of the day. You like, hey, I have a sketch. It's 5 minutes. Please let me in. And 1 out of 4 Fridays, they'd be like, yeah, you're in, buddy. Come on in. And there'd be you and a bunch of like random bad people, and then also like very, very funny UCB talent. The hosts were Paul Rust and Neil Campbell. I'm not sure their names to people. Neil Campbell's a producer, I think executive producer on Brooklyn Nine-Nine now, and Paul Rust did Love on Netflix. They were just the funniest possible people in the world to me, and opened my eyes to like this whole other kind of like genuine, simple, silly humor. But just doing sketches on that stage, right, where people, it's midnight, Friday night, people are just there to be supportive and laugh. And sometimes you would still just eat shit. You would still just put up a sketch that just bombs. And you learn that, right? You learn what makes people laugh. Getting a live response to moments, to timing, to particular types of jokes. If you're making fun of somebody and the silence there, you're like, oh, it's not actually that funny to make fun of this person. It's not actually that funny to phrase this thing that way. I think eventually, if you fail enough, if you do enough bad improv and sketch shows, you get an ability. You get an innate ability.
Even through podcasting, just to imagine what the audience enjoys. And there's like a small example of it. Sorry to be so specific. It's really the deepest dive into your podcast here. But
appreciate it.
Like, I love feeling that sense of passion for the game industry. I think like knowing what the audience wants, it comes through in these very small moments, which I love as a listener, where you're talking about Nier, and Damiani pulls out the name of the original Nier developer, and just real quick, you're like, good stuff, Damiani. Like, you can feel you rooting for the panel to educate the audience. Like you feel like you're like pulling to say, come on, feed them more. And whenever somebody does, you're happy on behalf of the audience. I think that makes a good host.
Sure. Yeah. And I think part of it is having an interest yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're asking a question that you want the answer for.
Right.
I think is part of it.
What's in your head while you're hosting a podcast?
A lot of times, like it is audience, it's flow. You glance at the clock a lot. That is a part of what I do a lot is, okay, where in the podcast are we? How many, like a part of the flow is who's been talking, right? Yeah. Like who needs to start talking. And also like, have we been too silly? Have we been too serious? Do we need a laugh right now? Do we need to actually just straight up talk about video games for a second? Flow, I think, is really important and, impossible to really describe. It's just a feeling.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have a fast metronome in your head while hosting?
I don't. I feel like I got a loosey-goosey metronome that's like
some floppy thing.
Yeah. So I got a floppy metronome.
I have this weird thing where when I like listen to podcasts that I was hosting, I always just feel myself like just like trying to move things along. I'm trying to shove people on this train so we can get up to speed. And then oftentimes when I go back and listen, it's like, why wasn't I just like savoring that? And I guess I am looking at a clock too, but you don't run into that problem of just listening to yourself and realizing like, why was I in such a rush? Why can't I just sit back and enjoy this?
No, there are definitely times where the opposite, I'm like, man, that went on too long. This podcast is 2.5 hours. I messed up. There are definitely times where I let somebody ride for too long, for sure. But I think there are very, very few podcasts. Some of them where there's another shoot that's happening and you need to wrap this up, baby. Like there's another shoot or there's a live stream happening immediately after this podcast. And so there were definitely times, yes, where I am rushing it out of necessity. But yeah, no, I think I got a pretty loose metronome.
All right, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I gotta say, the episode with your parents, unbelievable. And I even saw it in my, in the queue, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a weird one. I guess I'll give it a try here. I think that was like, it's a weird thing. I felt like it was one of the most challenging episodes of a podcast I've ever listened to because I could just project myself so much into it, and just feel. I was feeling your feelings of trying to have a heart-to-heart with your parents, but at the same time, like knowing what the audience is going to find funny about what they're saying about Sonic and trying to bring that up a little bit, but not insult your parents at the same time. It stressed me out listening to it, but it was incredible. It was really fun. It was
a fine balance. Yeah. And that's what's funny is that's what my mom did not want to do it for a long time. She was very nervous it was going to be that. It's like, Mom, what's Sonic's name? You know what I mean? And she was like really scared it's going to be like, look how stupid my parents are. And I had to assure her that was not it. But that it was still part of it, right? That it is still part of the fun of, I'm going to genuinely try to do this podcast with my parents who know as much about video games as they do. And originally it was going to be this thing where I was going to do year in review with my parents. And I think that was a little heavy on the look how ignorant my parents are about video games. And I realized it wouldn't actually be that valuable to the audience. Like, I think year in review is kind of fun. I'm like, oh, yeah, dude, that thing. But if it's the same joke for every part of that, it would not have worked out. And so, yeah, we made it personal. We made it really just about me and my personal history of video games. And they obviously had stuff to speak to each of those items. And yeah, it worked because I was genuinely interested in a lot of that stuff. And unfortunately, it was a lot of just like, Dad, what were you thinking at that time? He's like, I don't remember that video game, dude.
Yeah, I don't care about it nearly as much as you do. Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, there was a little bit of that for sure.
Did they read the YouTube comments? Were they into it?
Every single one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they loved it. They loved eating that stuff up. For sure. They read every single YouTube comment. Both of them. They kind of, I think they liked being stars a little bit for sure.
There's this SNL bit, I think it's from a couple years ago, where it was, the whole premise was like it was a father to son podcasting kit, and it was just a fake microphone that you'd set up in between a father and son so they could actually have a conversation, and it wouldn't actually connect anything. It just would be the reason for them to actually talk. Do you feel like there's a little bit of that of like, when's the last time you sat down and just talked to your parents in that focused of a way for that long?
To be honest, I talk to my parents a lot. Right. So every single Sunday, this has been a rule since I moved out to LA in 2008, is I have to call my mom. That's like my dad's rule.
Wow.
You must call your mother every Sunday. And, that's usually like an hour-long conversation.
That's amazing.
So really, my parents, I probably talk to them more than most other people, right? You talk to an hour a week, right? That's more than most of your close friends. And so, no, I have I have a pretty good relationship with them. And I think that's why that podcast worked in the way it did, right?
Yeah, yeah. So are you tempted to move back home? Are you tempted to get out of LA? How are you feeling overall about where you're at?
So what's weird is back home is not upstate New York. It's not my actual home. It's North Carolina. And with no offense meant to anyone from North Carolina, it does not feel like home to me either. It doesn't feel like the place that I want to be at. I think it's a nice headquarters. I think that it's a nice place to be for a sec while I figure stuff out, because it's like, hey, Kyle, we got an extra room, and my parents would love for me to live there for the rest of my life. They would love for me to live near them. In a similar way, I don't think that's. I don't know where I'm going to live. I'm just pretty sure it's not that. But Yeah, it'd be nice to spend a couple of months there as I'm trying to figure stuff out, for sure.
Okay. So that might be in the cards.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so original plans was, hey, if I don't get into school, I'm going to spend a bunch of money traveling the planet over the summer. That was my like original plans. Obviously, nobody's traveling right now. And basically I'm spending my travel budget just continuing to pay rent in this apartment.
Oh, no.
As I'm in lockdown. It's okay, right? But it was like I had like a plan to be unemployed for the rest of the summer, right? So it's not like this is really a lot of people are like, man, bad time to quit. What is he gonna like? Yeah, like I know. I was going to be unemployed. Like this was part of my plan. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought big time there.
Well, what about so traveling the planet, what would you hope to gain from that?
Insight.
Into yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I think you learn what's important to yourself, and I think you learn what is unimportant in a similar way. And really, man, a lot of this comes from one day I was talking to Michael Huber, another Easy Ally, and he was talking about how he and his wife always dreamt of living in London. I was like, cool, go do it. And it's like, no, there's 1,000 reasons for me not to go live in London right now. And that kind of it set this off. Like, it made me so sad. This idea of how I've spent basically my entire life so far living in 2 points of this entire planet. Right? I think a lot about my lifespan. I've spent too long living in Los Angeles. It's been 12 years. That's too much if you don't love it. If you're not passionate about it, if you're not discovering new things every day, this planet's too big to be so focused on one thing. Obviously, it made sense. It made sense when I moved out here and wanted to be a television writer, right? Like, there's no other place to live, I guess, except for New York. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you want to explore every opportunity, I don't know. It felt so weird that the idea of me just dying without discovering 2% of planet Earth felt so weird. Right. And so I kind of, this kind of like, I don't know if that's ambition or fear, but it was this thing where it's like, man, I should really move. I should really find a different place.
Yeah. And with the traveling thing in particular, I mean, would you be taking notes on how you're feeling? Or would it just be, I'm just going to be wide open to new opportunities, whatever comes along? I'll go hitchhiking. I'll go skinny dipping in Yellowstone. What do we got? Let's go.
I'm not a real note taker.
Okay.
I should be, but I'm not a real note taker. I'm not an actual writer. And I can't say I've ever skinny dipped, but that's the kind of thing, right? You're like, well, let's go skinny dipping, but maybe, right? In the movie version of me, we're absolutely skinny dipping.
Right.
But in reality, I'm probably just enjoying mountains. I think that's basically it. You just look at mountains and think oh, okay. This is a huge existence. I got it. These mountains, these eroded away and created these formations millions of years ago. Cool, got it. It's just just tough to grasp. Stuff that's tough to grasp.
Yeah. Do you ever have that horrifying sensation though? I feel like I'm being overly negative while trying to be positive, but sometimes when I am traveling and on the other side of the world, even, while I was at Game Informer and stuff, you have that weird realization of oh yeah, it's still me. It's still just my head. I can look at different things and appreciate things, but at the same time, everywhere I'm traveling, it's still the same construct in my brain that I can't escape.
Whoa, no, this is an interesting perspective.
Do you ever have that feeling where you're on a fantastic vacation, then realize oh yeah, but it's still, I'm not taking a vacation for my thoughts here?
I would say that's more of experiences for me, where it's I'm doing a thing that should be crazy fun, and it's man, it's still me here, right? Yeah. I'm doing a thing that should be very exciting, and it's not. No, I absolutely have that in that kind of way. No, generally for me, travel can be very invigorating. I think about other people a lot too, right? I think about how unimportant my own life is to other people who are just grinding in this whole other aspect and are happy in this entirely different world, where anything that I could give them is nothing to them in a weird way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
I went to Cuba a few years ago, and that was so fun. That was just the best trip. And Cuba, you can't have internet access. Well, you do. You can do it on your phone, but it's very limited, right? The government controls what you're allowed to see on the internet.
Okay.
You can't have TV. That's not what the government says, what kind of TV you can watch. You have this certain, income that everybody makes, no matter what your job is, you're making this amount of money. And so it's like this really cool. It's cool in that, man, none of us would want that, right?
Yeah.
We would all like, what, you can't tell me what I'm going to see on the internet. And you talk to people about like, hey, doesn't that make you mad? And they're like, no. Like, who cares? And you're like, doesn't it make you mad that you can't make this much money? And they're like, nah, dude, I'm good. I'm happy. It's like, what?
No, you aren't. Let me tell you why you aren't happy. Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly that. And you quickly realize that it's like, oh, this is okay. Obviously, there are very sketchy things about some. Basically, like if you break the law, if you're going to jail, you're going to have a much worse time than you would in many other governments. And so honestly, it's like such a fear-driven thing where crime rates are low. It's like if you rob somebody, you're donezo, buddy. And so like it's actually very safe to walk the streets. It's so strange. It's so strange. And so yeah, obviously, like I don't want to say Cuba's got it right, baby.
The real Bernie Sanders platform here for you. Yeah.
It was such a nice perspective. It was so nice to just speak to people who aren't like, yeah, man, I feel downtrodden. And also, I absolutely know that there are ways to get around those things. We were staying in this a top floor of a building, basically, and I could hear downstairs. I could hear somebody listening to cable TV, and it's like, I know you can't be watching this. It was like a Verizon commercial, and then suddenly into like Daily Show. It's like, I know you can't be watching Daily Show, but I was like, obviously, it's like, how are you getting this? They find ways. Everybody finds a way. Yeah. And so it's just cool. It's where I got into that. Oh, it's just just
appreciating other lifestyles.
Exactly. Just not everything I think is important to everybody at all.
Right. In terms of zoning out every once in a while, zoning out in a good way or checking out, your relationship with Twitter, how has that evolved over the years? And do you have a message to impart for people who get fucking fried from this thing?
So I feel like my first tweets come from the era when I started doing improv classes. And it's like, oh, okay, comedy people do tweets.
Right.
And so I did this for a little while. I don't know if those tweets were ever funny, right? But I don't know. It was occasional still. I wasn't really active on Twitter. And then when I started doing Final Bosman and became like an internet guy, I started trying to tweet again. I had some funny tweets, and it'd be like, hey, here's a new episode of Final Bosman, everybody, right? And then that would fall off, right? People started appreciating those tweets less, and then like my ambition for them died. And I would say, yeah, it comes and goes, right? I don't tweet too much. I feel like you need to desire a certain social connection on Twitter that I frankly don't desire, which is weird. I feel like you have to really want likes to really commit yourself.
Right. And then you have to zoom out and think about, why am I craving these likes so much? What am I hoping to see every time I unlock my phone? What is the best case scenario here? And how can I apply that to somewhere else in my life?
And I think it was 2 or 3 days after lockdown, just straight up deleted Twitter off my phone. Because I think it's not just me looking at my mentions, it's also me looking at the people I follow and what pops up there. And it's honestly just a very stressful piece of software. It's just, Twitter's just started really it was giving me more negative emotions than positive emotions. But I realize, going out on my own, doing my own things, there's a certain responsibility you have on Twitter, right? There's a certain, there are people who want to be aware of these things, and this is your platform to make them aware of things. And so, yeah, I expect to, do the bare minimum amount of Twitter, but man, I don't know. I always kind of wanted to make videos. I kind of always wanted to make very silly, stupid videos.
There's even like on Instagram, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like on Twitter.
What a pioneer.
Yeah, but I don't mean. I just mean like, man, I want to do the dumbest things, and I feel like maybe, being on your own gives you more freedom to do that. It's not like Kyle Bosman of Easy Allies made this video where a couple of toys are swearing at each other. It's just like Kyle's insane. He's lost his mind. And this is the kind of thing he does now.
You want like the George Lucas phase of your career where it's like, I sold it all to Disney. Now I'm just going to make art films for myself and my friends, except for you. It's just going to be like wacky banana hijinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wacky banana hijinks.
Follow wacky banana hijinks.
That's the maximum level of my sense of humor.
Okay. What about being a beloved figure on the internet? Beloved amongst the Easy Allies community and probably a little bit beyond as well. That role, better or worse for your mental health, do you think, as a human being?
This is really interesting. I think I actually want to make a video about this. I was thinking about how to construct my thoughts on this and then actually try to convey what it means to me. Because when I wrote my resignation letter, people said like, hey man, this made me cry, and hey man, I love you, right? And I don't think either of those emotions are inauthentic, right? If you cry, you cried. And nobody can say like, hey, you shouldn't have cried. You don't deserve to cry. This is not the type of thing you should cry at.
But you had to tell them that.
Yeah, somebody had that emotion, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot about this, and obviously I've been sad myself. I think I love Twitch. I love streaming. Just having this direct connection with an audience one-on-one just on a Friday night is so nice. Just such an interesting conversation you can have with a group of people, and sort of you're all vibing off of each other. It is like a live audience, except instead of people just either clapping or laughing, they can say complete sentences and really form and change the way that you're making jokes or that you play a video game. In such interesting ways. And so it's not as if I don't have my own feelings for this audience, right? Which is also crazy. They're also just words on a computer screen. So I have a lot of thoughts about it that I need to explore myself. I would say it's good for me. I would say it's absolutely good for me. There are a lot of ways that I'm not willing to accept it. Because I haven't said I love you back. I almost feel like that's irresponsible too. And I've felt that way for a long time, is if like I say I love you to the audience, that it might create like an inappropriate level of parasocial relationship, right? If I say that back to them, they might think like, oh, okay, I don't need love in my real life. I've got this, right? Or just that this thing is, he's got a greater connection to me than he really does. And so it's hard for me to find that balance, to find what's right there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I feel like from the MinnMax Twitter account and probably my own, I've been saying, I love you too, that type of thing. And I've never considered it that way. Maybe I haven't thought about it enough, but maybe it's shallow, but it's like, well, it's just kind of like, we're like a brand. It's like the MinnMax brand. We're not explicitly saying, you come to me for love when you need love in your life. Like, I don't think anybody is thinking that.
Brands are allowed to say I love you. Well, I think it's on top of that, it's like it's for me in real life hard to say I love you to another human. So when I say it, I mean it.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's tough. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to hear that so much.
Right. Yeah. Are you prepared to read a bunch of comments in the last episode?
Yeah. We actually just posted it like hours before recording this thing. Yeah. A couple hours. No, maybe just 1 hour. I think I got 1 hour of comments in. Yeah, Ben, I read the comments no matter what.
That's awesome.
That's going to be hard. It's going to be hard next week having no comments to read.
Well, that's when you start up the videos.
Yeah.
The wacky videos to get some new comments.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything on your mind? Any surprising emotions throughout this whole experience?
No, I guess not. I guess I'm ready to have this unknown for sure. I think it's going to be depressing. It's going to be tough some days. I'm going to feel like I made the wrong decision, and it's exciting. It's exciting to have unknown. Basically, we're talking about eating French fries, right?
Yeah.
And loving my job, but not feeling fulfilled. I think a big part of that is how I didn't feel like I was advancing. Like I didn't feel like part of it is challenge, right? But part of it is also just this progression. You want to be getting experience points. You want to be leveling up. You want to be learning new moves and unlocking new costumes and new weapons. And I definitely felt like I was treading for sure. And so I'm in this place right now where it's a sequel, right? There's no way I can't advance, even if it's in a bad direction, right? Even if I end up in a bad spot a year from now. It will at least be extremely, extremely different. And there's something very exciting about that. And it kind of clears up parts of my mind that were downtrodden for sure.
Yeah. And it's nice thinking about, maybe, I know I've been really lucky and maybe all my friends have been lucky, but it's rare, I think, for somebody to make a bold move like this in their life, professional, personal, and that it doesn't add to them in some way. It's rare for someone to be like, well, I have some mixed emotions about this. I'm going to leave it behind. And then to have somebody just clawing desperately to go back. It's like, no, life changes. You get new things to worry about, new things to love, and you just progress overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it happens to like people in bands. They'll go on and say like, I'm doing a solo career now. And then it just totally sucks.
I guess that's true.
I guess there's a possibility of that.
I wonder if they're happy though, if they're happier.
Yeah.
Overall.
Oh, probably. But also, like, it's not my idea to just go and do Easy Allies on my own. That's not what I'm going to go off and do, right? It's not like I'm going to go do... I'm not going to go be Justin Timberlake after doing NSYNC. It's maybe I'll, like, it's like everything else Justin Timberlake did after NSYNC. Because, he became, like, the best SNL host of all time and an okay actor.
Mm-hmm. In some amazing films, but still.
Yeah. And maybe that's it. What else did Justin Timberlake do?
Let's see.
For some reason, this is the weird thing, Ben. I really admire Justin Timberlake's work ethic without knowing very much at all about him.
Well,
I have this idea of who Justin Timberlake is. He's one of the trolls.
And look, they released that digitally. I mean, it's doing all right. World tour. A hell of a world tour.
That's something.
And I feel very primed of Justin Timberlake because the Blank Check podcast just had a podcast episode not too long ago about like his concert film directed by Jonathan Demme, which is a very bizarre concept. And then also he was on Hot Ones. And I watched it, and I think it was the first Hot Ones guest where I was like, I don't care for this guy. Something's weird. There's some weird energy in this room where if I wrote a transcript, it would be fine. But I'm just feeling something that's freaking me out a little bit.
Yeah, I think any admiration I have for him might be a little misplaced.
Yes.
Maybe it's because he cried on Punk'd. You ever watched the episode of Punk'd where he cried?
No.
It's one of the first few. Ashton Kutcher like took away some stuff. He had some pretend IRS people come to Justin Timberlake's house and take away his stuff. Justin Timberlake straight up cried. And then he said, go ahead and put this on MTV. I don't care. It's like, okay, cool.
So is that a cool move? To be so comfortable that it's like, yeah, go ahead and do it? Or is he still? Yeah, it's a little odd.
You know you are cool, right? You have this comfort with your own self-image that you don't care if you don't appear masculine. Like, right? They can make fun of you for crying, but it's like, dude, I'm still Justin Timberlake, Briss.
Come on, everybody. But
to be clear, though, I don't want to go be the best SNL host of all time and also be a TV star or a movies, like an okay movie star. The idea is like what I consistently say, and is the truth, is the job I have 10 years from now, I think doesn't exist right now. And so there's this kind of exploration, right? Like the jobs we have right now didn't really exist 10 years ago.
Right.
And so there's something to discover. There's something that I want to be in on that will exist 10 years from now that I want to be prepared for.
That's bizarre. Tech cutting edge type stuff.
Yeah, but also, I think that Twitch's entertainment is extremely exciting to me. This kind of live entertainment that's you can have an audience of 1,000 and be touching people, right? And it's like an effective thing, right? Because we're talking back to like Not Too Shabby, this Friday night midnight show. There's 80 people in that audience, sometimes 50, sometimes 20, right? But it felt like doing a show. And this idea that you can have 300 people and it's not that much is silly, right? Because at a live show, that'd be crazy. But there's something really, really exciting to me. There's a convergence of like, when you're playing a video game, there's this live show element. There's just playing video games. There's just a simple like, video games are about progression mostly, right? And there's just simple like, you feel like when you're watching this thing, it is moving forward as a movie should, as a TV show should. There's something here. I don't know if it's tech. I feel like there's a discovery of entertainment yet to happen, and I want to be prepped for that. I want to be in on whatever this weird thing is 10 years from now.
That's a bold vision, man. Hats off to you for tackling the next frontier of entertainment.
I would say, well, yeah, exactly. It's not that bold because I don't know what it is, right? I can't go to like talk to Mark Cuban and be like, hey, buddy, invest in me. Here's what's going on.
Right.
It's really just like, I think it's a very lazy thing to say, like, yeah, I want to be doing the next thing. You know, it's like, I'm skipping this thing. I just want to be good at the next thing. It's like not that cool.
That's when I'm really going to start trying. Yeah. But it must be nice too to like know that in your back pocket, if you wanted to just start streaming again, like there's a community that would support you and you could get by, right? Yeah, for sure. Yes, I do feel that. And that's been made clear to me by the community. Like, hey, man, we'll support you. We want to support you. We'll do it. Like, you know, just tell us, right? Just tell us what you're doing. Yeah. We have your back. I do believe there are enough people who genuinely appreciate the things that I do. And that is a great feeling that very few people on this planet ever get to feel, for sure. It's a privilege. And on behalf of that community,
not something I take lightly.
Yeah, please stay in touch with the internet every once in a while. Don't go years just staring at that mountain, your beard growing, your fingernails growing. Be sure to check in every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try.
Do you want to?
I'll try. No, so that's the thing is I feel an obligation. I feel like I owe it to everybody when I'm working on whatever thing that I'm allowed to tell them that I'm working on. I will, because the support they give me, right? I need to give you something back in return. I need to at least say, hey, here it is. Check this out. There's some things I want to work on in secret. I'll tell you one of my dreams. I shouldn't have even said this because this is a real dream. I want to have a line of t-shirts that nobody knows I'm making. And I want this t-shirt line to blow up.
Is this like some J.K. Rowling nonsense? What are you doing?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Right.
Okay.
Like it's you know, it's just called like Dumb Babes, right? And it's just like Dumb Babes gets huge. And then someday I'm able to be like, yeah, Dumb Babes is me. And I'm like, whoa, dude. It's just like, you know, like Drake's wearing a Dumb Babes shirt. And I'm like, I know. So like that's like these are my dreams. That's my kind of dream.
Okay. So everyone should be on the lookout for anything with even a slight hint that it's you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There will be a subtle hint in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. That's a good message to end on. And again, please support Easy Allies. Keep listening to the podcast. Jones is going to do an awesome job. Send him some feedback and help shape the future. It's a good time for communication with them, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Easy Allies is going to be good without me. There's going to be a missing element, but also they're going to be able to shine a little more, right? They won't have me like dragging them down. In certain ways, I mean, in certain ways where like I would often just make fun of somebody, just grill them during a stream. Where it's like, hey man, don't just have a nice stream right now. Yeah, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna have some good streams without me. Some good podcasts.
Cool. And you're welcome to swing by Minnesota whenever you'd like. If in your world travels you do end up coming this way, we have lakes. Let's see. If you like drinking beer in a backyard, we've got that taken care of. And
I like lemonade in a backyard.
Okay. We can see if that's acceptable. We'll let you know.
Summer's coming.
No matter what, it's coming. Sweet.
It's coming.
Kyle Bosman, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your hard work throughout the years, man. It's been really fun to listen to you. Cool. And thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of a bonus video, as these are known as. Basically,
this is a niche you're getting into, right? Somebody quits and you talk to them?
It's a weird thing. So we're going to be starting an interview show here at MinnMax. And it's like, oh, is this the first one? Like, I don't think we're quite ready yet, so probably not. But it's a weird thing where everybody, like whenever somebody announces that they're changing their career or leaving the game industry or something, it's like, well, count down the seconds till they're on MinnMax here. So yeah, maybe we'll do more of these types of things in the future. You never know.
You should brand this in a way. You should brand the They Quit podcast.
Just like, okay, the game journalism exit interview type thing.
Yeah. Are you getting Schreier?
I mean, we had him on the MinnMax show this week.
Oh,
so
nice.
It
cool.
kind of fits in there. We could make like a YouTube clip. Anyways, look, you're back in the headspace, man. You got to let this world go. You got to not worry about branding for a while. Get to find yourself. All right. Thanks so much for watching and listening, everybody. See ya. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The deepest dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot, try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.